I'm focused on his spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christine Barr, and today we're going to be talking about some revelations, some emails on things that got declassified, and there's all these articles and commentary right now about Hillary Clinton and the Trump, the plan to smear Trump as Russia collusion and stuff. And I've been saying this. To me, that's not like new information. And I went back and I pulled up an article that I wrote, in June of 2024, and it plainly says that she like okayed it or something in the article that I wrote and I shared, that she signed off on the plan, which I sourced that from the Federalist Society wrote about that because there was a DNI declassified certain things that were like notes from John Brennan, and because he briefed Barack Obama about it, so they were aware of it, and they told Obama, and this is prior to 2016 election night. So prior to the election, they knew that Hillary Clinton had this like scheme going on. And yeah, so it's not news to me, but I guess it's news. So we're gonna cover it, and I'm glad people are talking about it, because my point in mentioning it last year was that Joe Biden was going around saying that Republicans are a threat, and Democrats were like, oh, Trump is a threat to democracy, we got to stand up for democracy. And I'm like, you people are legitimately like the threat to democracy. And the premise of the article is like, you guys have done things to actually undermine democracy for a minute now, so we're not just gonna pretend like Trump is a threat when you guys have been doing all this crazy stuff all this time. So we're gonna be talking about that. Also, Kamala Harris said she's not gonna run again. Well, she doesn't plan to run for governor of California. People are like, oh, is she gonna run for president? Get embarrassed in a primary? She might be done. I think what she said on Colbert show was pretty interesting, because she said something about how she didn't want to be in the system anymore. So to me, that sounds like she's gonna go try to make money doing stuff like, I don't know, Stacey Abrams, let me get people voting and do side projects and put my name on different initiatives, and get a big paycheck while I don't really do anything, and maybe even scam people. I don't know, but I don't know if she would or wouldn't be able to win that California primary either. So she's failed spectacularly, but she's just, and she has failed upward into obviously high positions of power. But I'm so glad that she lost, and it gave me joy. It, like, I wasn't just glad to see Trump win or anything. I was mostly glad that she lost, and I wanted to see her defeated. I just did. So anyway, we'll be talking about that and some other things today. Before we jump into it, I want to first of all say hello. Thank you for joining me. But you can go to blacktnews.com, check out different content, the website, articles, videos, etc. Articles like the one that I referenced, the Biden and the radical left are the threat to democracy. Pick up that article and other ones. I have topical, like social ones that are always relevant, but this has really good information in it. I'm gonna have to like update or revise or whatever some things that I already wrote before. But check out the stuff on the website. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the website, because it does cost to stream my website, my show for you guys and stuff, with like the different software and stuff that I use. It does cost to like run my site, to have the domain and the hosting and all that stuff. There's a cost to that, and it's a certain kind of site, so it's like, not really basic. So there's costs associated with that. So if you guys can help and support with that, I very much appreciate it. Best way to support is to go directly to the website. You guys can do super chats. You guys can do um like stars or whatever on Facebook. And but the best way to do it is to just go to the website if you want to support in that way. You guys can also check out different merch that's available on the website as well. And I also want to encourage you guys to go check out some of my books on Amazon. There's a link in the description. It'll take you to an Amazon page where you guys can check out some of my writing. I do want to thank a viewer. Someone did message me last night and left a really nice message and email. I haven't got the chance to email back. I did see it. And I really, really did appreciate it. And it was just about how they really appreciated my stance on abortion and the different topics that I talk about, and that they really like what I do. And that when they were younger, they did make that mistake, and that they know, God has forgiven them and so on. But, they just really appreciate, the information that I put out there. So, I really appreciate you reaching out. I know I took a big chunk to talk about an important issue with the abortion debate yesterday, about how people conflate miscarriage management with an induced abortion, which I just think is so heinous and it's so unfair to women. And it's really dangerous because dim-witted, um, doctors or whoever might believe the misinformation, or there's such activists that they don't treat the women right, just to be frank. And then you get situations where women are harmed and it's medical malpractice, because it's not the stuff written in the laws that were preventing doctors from helping women, but there's such misinformation that it leads to medical malpractice. And then journalists and activists start, pushing out propaganda on Twitter, on Instagram, and all these places, on TikTok, and then they push it in different articles, and then politicians pick it up, and then it becomes these huge stories because they want to strip away all sort of limitations on abortion, to say, well, we can't just have it, 24 weeks, and then some exceptions for medical reasons, because these pro-lifers, they don't even want to grant these. Like, when it comes down to it, they don't really want to grant the exception. So we just got to have no restrictions at all, period. So I obviously see that game, and it's evil, and you shouldn't use the grieving mothers who had children who naturally passed, as pawns, to do something that is like what we believe is morally irreprehensible. And you should be able to stand on what you believe and debate what you believe without all of this misinformation. And the fact that you have to lie and resort to all these tactics, just lets me know that that it's wrong, but you get a big paycheck or whatever reason, you double down on it, So I've had to correct a lot of people on that recently. So I just decided to just take some time on the segment. And Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, like everybody's like really trying to like suppress the streams and lives and views and stuff. I'm seriously in TikTok like view jail right now. So, just still taking that time to go ahead and say my piece, still do my show, prepare things, go through my rants. You guys love my rants, or I'm told that some of you love my rants. I don't know if all of you love my rants, but and then, to reach out and say, hey, I enjoyed it. And it was just encouraging to me. So I have to deal with trolls quite often. All the time. And sometimes I mention them, but I just want you guys to know that I do appreciate you, the viewers who watch, which watch sometimes, watch back later, watch live. I just appreciate you taking the time. A lot of people talk about different political commentary, and it's an honor that you take the time to want to listen to me. So I just wanted to take the time to thank you all, and say that I appreciate you, and it's not going unnoticed. And thank you. Anyway, I want to start off with let's just go ahead and jump into it, this Hillary Clinton story. Now, let me, I guess, go through the Washington Post stuff. The New York Post, I'm sorry, the New York Post wrote about it. They got a couple articles out, but we'll go ahead and read the article. It says, read the documents that prove Hillary Clinton okayed the plan to smear Trump with Russia collusion. Again and again, in my mind, I'm like, is that the thing that's supposed to be new? That she okayed it? And I'm like, I think we knew that. So I went back to my old article and it said, that she okayed it. So this is news to people because some of these documents are, declassified, and people can now just go read the actual emails. Now there's people who are um upset that the emails are released. There hasn't really been a denial of the email. Some people are saying things like, "Oh, I can't recall," or whatever, but not really like real denials. I mean, I think you would know if you didn't write some of this stuff. But I knew about this stuff because um it was already reported on. It was already reported on, and that you had Brennan's notes that wrote about it, and when they briefed Obama about the Hillary Clinton plot to Russian asset, and I think these stupid ads are slowing stuff down. So since Brennan reported on it and that got like declassified or whatever, it was reported on by like the Federalist Society and other folks like that, and they had receipts, and so I just linked some of the receipts and talked about it and built my case of why Democrats are the threat to democracy, as they keep saying. And I know Republicans hate when we call the U.S. a democracy; it's a constitutional republic or whatever. But you know, they set up all this stuff because they don't want the people of America to have real information to make informed decisions. So Hillary Clinton had an issue with her emails and improper conduct. It's still wild to me that she didn't get into trouble for that. I mean, she got into like huge political scandal, but as far as like her going to jail or something, like at first I'm like, I don't know if they're actually going to do something along those lines. But if you lived in that time, 2016 was a wild year. I'm gonna have to like unattach this. I'm sorry, it's like slowing up the stream, so I'm gonna have to just read it to you guys. But it was a wild time if you're unaware of like 2016. But watching that press conference, I was at work that day. I was working at the Michigan Republican Party, and Comey, Loretta Lynch, she couldn't. She got caught with like Bill Clinton on the tarmac or something, or was it Obama? It might have been Bill. I don't know. I can't remember exactly. So anyway, she got in trouble. Someone in the comments could probably fact check me on. Well, just correct me. Like it's one of those things. But it was just like improper, the meeting while this case was kind of going on about the email. So they're like, okay, we're just going to refer to whatever the FBI says. So Comey comes out, does a press conference, and just airs all her dirty laundry, all the stuff that she did, inappropriate behavior with the servers, deleting about a bunch of stuff, using bleach bit, destroying devices with hammers and stuff. And I remember watching CNN and they're like, no, fact check that. It was Brooke, I think. Fact check that on the fly. Hammers, they broke stuff with hammers, and they're like, yeah, they did, just destroying stuff. So he was just laying out a case, and then he's like, but we're not gonna do anything. It's just like gross negligence. He like made this different standard of just like gross negligence, and it just, to me, I guess the facts were what the facts were. So Comey just laid it out, and then he just kind of made this new standard. But he laid out such a good case for her being charged that I'm like, was he mad at them and just wanted to lay out all the business and, light it on fire and walk away because he knew that he couldn't prosecute her? Now we know Comey is like, like in the tank for these folks. So with his like pussy hat ears and all that stuff. So he's an activist. He's a bad actor. So there was no justice on that front. The only justice was Trump winning. And they had reopened the case for a little bit after that. And it was like right before the election. And then because they found some more emails on like Anthony Weiner's laptop or something. And then they went through it really, really fast or whatever. I'm like, how do you go through all those emails that fast? And I remember being at the rally, at a Trump rally, and Trump was just kind of shook his head, and he's just like, you know what? The only justice going forward at this point is to win. Like that's all there is. Like the only way to get justice is to defeat them. And that was true, unfortunately. And then he didn't want to go after her, which I understand, if only, they cared about keeping the country together in a way that he cared about keeping the country together. And he's like, I don't want to hurt her. He didn't want to go after her hard or whatever. But of course, they didn't have the same kind of grace when it came to him. So anyway, she needed to distract from her emails because she was getting some bad press about it. So she came out with a plot to link Trump with Russia so that could be the focus. In 2016, the way they smeared Trump, went after Trump, it was incredible. It was incredible. There were so many smears on Trump that just even went beyond the campaign trail that absolutely followed him into his presidency. And I've written about it. I've done videos about the top Trump hoaxes. Like, he said all Mexicans are rapists. Definitely didn't say that. Go back and watch that video. It's basically everything he said in that kind of press conference was like, oh gosh, we clearly saw that this was true. Like all these things he was saying. That he mocked a disabled reporter's disability, which he didn't mock a reporter who ended up being disabled, but he wasn't mocking his disability. Just a bunch of wild stuff. The one of the most wild things, tell me if you guys remember this. Hillary Clinton is big on like, or was at least pretending like to be big on like gun control at the time. And she was speaking out against the ruling on DC versus Heller, and if you are against the ruling of DC versus Heller, you don't believe that we have a right to like private firearms and stuff? So, which Kamala Harris did sign her name, with the Democrat perspective on, I guess people not really having a right to own firearms. So that was scary. But she was saying all this stuff about guns, and Trump is just like, okay, if you don't like guns, then why don't you tell your Secret Service to not have guns or something? Seems like a very kind of common sense clapback. Like, okay, you live by your ethic. You don't want the American people to be protected, but you're going around being protected by firearms. Seems like a very common sense response. Then it became, oh my gosh, Donald Trump wants Hillary Clinton to die. They were saying that because he wanted, and it doesn't mean that he wanted them to do that. He was just mocking her, like challenging, testing her ethic, testing her worldview, seeing if her logic really applies. That's what he was doing with his comments. But they were saying that Donald Trump wanted Secret Service and her security stuff to disarm so she could be murdered. And he was calling for her to be murdered. It was a really wild time. And that was a big thing. I remember people making like kind of comics mocking the left on it. Just wild stuff during 2016. But she needed to distract, and the Russia thing became a really, really big story. And obviously that haunted him and followed him very far into his administration, especially now we know, Obama's didn't like there was all this intel saying that Russia really wasn't doing anything with the election, and then after the election, it shifted to, oh well, they wanted Trump to win, and um they interfered with our election, and there was 14 or 17 intelligence agencies that got together and said that this was true, and all this stuff. But before we got to that point in December where Obama wanted to affirm that sort of worldview, before all that, Hillary Clinton first started laying the groundwork. So again, I'm going to be reading from the New York Post article. This says, read the documents that prove Hillary Clinton okayed the plan to smear Trump with the Russia collusion, and they do have like the emails and they do have like the emails and stuff that you can read in the article. There's too many like ads, it's like slowing up the stream or whatever, so I'm just gonna read it to you guys. I was gonna do split screen, but just that's what's going on. Anyway, Washington. Hillary Clinton signed off on the plan hatched by top campaign advisors to smear then candidate Donald Trump with false claims of Russia collusion and distract from her own mounting email scandal during the 2016 campaign, according to explosive intelligence files declassified Thursday. The 24-page intelligence annex was compiled from memos and emails obtained by the Obama administration in the lead up to Election Day that laid out a confidential conversations between leaders of the Democratic National Committee, including then Chair W. Wasserman Schultz and liberal billionaire George Soros' Open Society Foundations. By the way, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, during that time, she was in really hot water because with like Democrats during the primary time, because she clearly favored Hillary Clinton and did some shady stuff on her behalf. So when Hillary Clinton was nominated, she won the nomination, and there was a bunch of Bernie people who were upset, and like Dem exit was trending. And I know people who were Bernie people who don't like Trump but still voted not only for Trump but straight party ticket Republican. Like it wasn't just like a super delegate thing that people were mad about in that system with the Democrat primary. They were really, really gunning for Hillary Clinton, and people did shady stuff to make it happen. There was like Donna Brazile also like leaking debate questions and stuff. So they had it in the bag for her. Like they they wanted her to win, and they did what was necessary for her to win. So I'm not surprised to see like her being part of these conversations. The plot, the brainchild of Clinton campaign's then foreign policy advisor Julianne Smith, included raising the theme of Putin's support for Trump and subsequently steering public opinion toward the notion that it needs to equate the Russian leader's political influence campaign with actual hacking of an election infrastructure. Smith would go on to serve as former President Joe Biden's ambassador to NATO. So you get elevated for your evil, guys. I don't have any comment, she told the Post when reached by phone Thursday. Open Society senior vice president Leonard Bernardo was looped in the scheme and laid out its intended effect in a series of emails in late July 2016. Julie says it will be a long-term affair to demonize Putin and Trump. Bernardo was quoted as writing July 25th. Now it is a good for the post-convention bounce. Later, the FBI will put more oil into the fire. 2 days later, Bernardo wrote, HRC approved Julia's idea about Trump and Russia hackers hampering U.S. elections. That should distract people from her own missing emails, especially if the affair goes to the Olympic level. An apparent reference to the revelations of a massive state-sponsored doping campaign by Russia following the 2014 Winter Games in Sochi. The point is making the Russian play a U.S. domestic issue. Bernardo also stated, in absence of direct evidence, CrowdStrike and Threat Connect will supply the media, and GRU, Russia Foreign Intelligence Arm, will hopefully carry on to give more facts. Special Counsel John Durham uncovered the files during a multi-year probe into intelligence activities during the 2016 election. So yeah, I guess that's probably when he started releasing some of those revelations, when they had the special report. And again, Federal Society, other people were starting to write about that and show different memos and like go briefing Obama on some of this stuff. And that's, I guess, why I know about it, and I did report about it, and I've talked about it at the time. So again, it's not like news to me. I'm not surprised by a lot of revelations or things that come out, but again, I'm very glad it's in the news. I'm glad that people are talking about it. It's amazing that people are trying to downplay it and act like this didn't happen. Durham consulted the FBI, which assessed that the information was likely authentic but couldn't corroborate exact copies of the Bernardo emails, which with Open Society Foundations, the CIA also determined that the intelligence was not the product of Russian fabrications. Smith was, at a minimum, playing a role in the Clinton campaign's efforts to tie Trump to Russia. Durham concluded the Trump-Russia investigation was part of what March 2016 memo included. The annex described as two-pronged DP Democratic Party opposition that is focused on discrediting Trump. Among other things, the Clinton staff, with support from special services, is preparing scandalous revelations of business relations between Trump and the Russian mafia. The special services cited in one of the memos referring to intelligence activities of Obama's CIA and FBI, which may have included the work of Trump dossier author Christopher Steele. The memos also claim then President Barack Obama was putting pressure on FBI Director James Comey through Attorney General Loretta Lynch to wrap up the probe of the Clintons' use of private email server to receive highly classified information while Secretary of State. Obama January 2016 memo read, has no intention to darken the final part of his presidency and legacy by the scandal surrounding the main contender from the Democrat Party. The March 2016 memo, well, too bad he didn't want to darken his legacy, but it's still following you, bruh. The March 2016 memo claimed the 44th president had sanctioned the use of all administrative levers to remove possibly negative effects from the FBI investigation of cases related to the Clinton Foundation and the email correspondence and the State Department. Let me just pause for a moment, because I can understand being annoyed with Hillary Clinton. It's your final time in office. You're in your last year. It's coming up with election, and she's the front runner. She's the person who's supposed to carry on and protect the things that you did, or this bumbling guy Trump is going to come in and try to knock down everything with a bulldozer or whatever. And she was your Secretary of State, and she has this email scandal. So of course it reflects badly upon Barack Obama, and people like to pretend Obama didn't have any scandals, which is just cap. It's not true. What about Fast and Furious? What about the IRS scandal? There's stuff under the Obama administration, but but him being annoyed and wanting them to wrap it up or whatever, and I wonder how much they dislike each other, what they say behind the scenes. But Hillary Clinton, when the whole Benghazi thing happened, she's responsible for that stuff. But some of the stuff she was doing seemed to be covering for his incompetence or whatever. But she basically took the bullet for that. Everybody focuses in on Hillary Clinton, and that happened under his administration. So I'm it kind of seemed like she took the brunt of that. And that obviously still followed her and hurt her throughout her campaign. I think if Hillary Clinton had never been Secretary of State for Barack Obama, she would have had a better chance of winning the presidency, because obviously the email scandal hurt her, and also the Benghazi stuff and her, what difference at this point does it make? And then she had an interview, and I was either an interview or town hall, and she said that they didn't lose a single person. And when she said we didn't lose a single person, I was working in the Michigan Republican Party at the time. I was working there, and I heard that, and I did hit pieces. I did more than hit pieces. But I did all the graphics and the videos and stuff like that for the state party. And in Michigan, we have a pretty good state party. At least we did. I don't know about it's hasn't been as good since probably that 2016, to be frank. But um um so as soon as I heard that, I'm like, I got an idea. And so I found some music I wanted, and then I showed, the people who were killed in Benghazi because of her, and the soldiers and the ambassador. And like, these are the people, like, this is that she left behind. And I when I would do things with Hillary Clinton, it was I'm with her, and the background was blue, and there was like a red arrow, and there's all this her stuff, because she's a woman, and so it was like forgotten by her, and it like looked like her logo and stuff. So I like my mind, I'm like, I can hear like I used to say the evil in my mind, but it's it was just like telling the truth, but whatever. But I was just like ready to like tear her apart. Like, I was excited to do it. And I'm just like, I can't believe you lied about that, or maybe it was you misspoke, but you don't misspeak about things like that when your decisions, you know, can lead to such harm, or you at least know that lives were lost. So, but anyway, if she wasn't the Secretary of State and didn't serve in the Obama administration, I think she would have had a better shot as a senator who was also, the first lady. She would have had a much better chance, because people think that, she was just a bloodthirsty woman going around the world starting wars and killing people. Like, she was kind of like the face of corruption. When you think of a face of corruption, you if on the Democrat side, people imagine the Clintons. Anyway, in December 2016, Obama ordered a post-election intelligence assessment of nefarious Russian activity surrounding that year's election. That assessment, published in January 2017, included, over the objections of senior CIA officials, details from the Steele dossier, an opposition research project funded in part by Clinton's campaign and the DNC. In March 2016, then FBI Director Andrew McCabe shared the memos with senior officials at the Department of Justice, suggesting a plot to launch an investigation based on Democratic campaign document. During the first stage of the campaign, due to lack of direct evidence, it was decided to disseminate the necessary information through the FBI affiliate technical structures, in particular the CrowdStrike and Threat Connect campaigns, from where the information would be disseminated through leading U.S. publications. One Bernardo email read. Durham concluded the office's best assessment is that the emails purport to be from Bernardo were ultimately a composite of several emails that were obtained through Russian intelligence hacking of the U.S. Based think tanks, including Open Society Foundations, the Carnegie Endowment, and others. Attorney General Pam Bondi, FBI Director Kash Patel, and other members of the U.S. intelligence community declassified the Durham Annex at the request of Senator Chuck Grassley. Based on the Durham Annex, the Obama FBI failed to adequately review and investigate intelligence reports showing the Clinton campaign may have been ginning up fake Trump Russia narrative for Clinton's political gain, which was ultimately done through the Steele dossier and other means. Grassley said in a statement, these intelligence reports and related records, whether true or false, were buried for years. History will show that the Obama and Biden administration's law enforcement and intelligence agencies were weaponized against President Trump, he added, which, again, I don't think that's news to us, guys. This political weaponization has caused critical damage to our institutions and is one of the biggest political scandals and cover-ups in American history, which I think so. The new Trump administration has a tremendous responsibility to the American people to fix the damage done, and to do so with maximum speed and transparency. Ratcliffe said in a statement that the files, some of which came from the CIA, showed a coordinated plan to prevent and destroy Donald Trump's presidency. Bondi and Patel insisted that the public disclosures would restore America's trust in the government and provide accountability. The Department of Justice, alongside the CIA, is committed to truth and transparency and will continue to support good faith efforts by Congress to hold our government accountable, Bondi said. Chairman Grassley is leading by example and shining light on critical issues of great interest to the American people. The American people deserve full and unfiltered truth about the Russia collusion hoax and the political abuse of our justice system It exposed Adit Patel. Today's declassification and release of documents tied to the Durham report is another step toward that accountability. I'm grateful to Chairman Grassley for his steadfast leadership on the issue, and I look forward to our continued partnership exposing one of the most shameful frauds ever perpetrated on the American public. A spokesperson for the Open Society Foundation said in a statement, the claim that the Open Society Foundations helped orchestrate the FBI investigation is an outrageous falsehood. It is grounded in malicious disinformation traced to Russian intelligence and now weaponized as part of a politically motivated campaign to attack our leadership and our work to promote human rights. Yeah, right. And the human rights. The Durham report found no wrongdoing by our staff. The rep also said, we are a nonpartisan organization and do not engage in political campaign activity. Yeah, right. These accusations are not just reckless, they are dangerous. They reflect a broader effort to foment hostility and undermine civil society, and they are calculated to distract from real scandals. The Post reached out to Bernardo and reps for Clinton for comment. So apparently they did not get back with the Post, which is one of the oldest papers in the country, by the way. Yeah, so some time ago, I wrote an article. It was last year, in June 1st, actually. Biden and the radical left are the threat to democracy, and yeah, the premise was just like the Democrats keep saying that Trump is a threat when the Democrats are the one continuously over and over and over and over again, um, undermining our democracy, quote unquote, and spreading misinformation, trying to rob people of informed consent so they can make a decision about who is best for the country. I was thinking about this the other day. You know, Hillary Clinton was such a bad candidate for many reasons. You know, I already mentioned that people see her face and they associate her with corruption. They associate her with political establishment. People don't want political dynasties, or at least they claim, you know, to not want that stuff. Maybe that era is over, maybe it's not over, but you know, people really like the folks, they seem to want to keep putting them in office. So who knows? Who knows? But Hillary Clinton, Obama knew that were doing this thing. And what really got me, because we still know like other stuff that Biden did, Obama and his people did, like the setting up of like General Flynn by Comey. You know, there was also, you know, trying to use the Logan Act to prosecute folks that was suggested by Biden spying on Trump's campaign. They clearly were going after him and didn't want him to succeed. There was people within the FBI who's like, we have an insurance policy. He's not going to win. And the FBI was doing like so many shady things that before Trump got in, there were people trying to get like different insurance, like liability insurance, in case they were like sued by the government for for the behaviors that they had. So it was very clear that they were really trying to stop Trump and they didn't want him to win, obviously, but then they also decided to undermine his incoming presidency for political reasons. And it's so not good for the country. Now, I'm not saying that that stuff is gonna land anybody in jail, and I think people like saying that, or you know, really really advocating, I can understand advocating for it, but is there like some kind of statute, some kind of law that you guys can point to? A lot of people are saying, well, Obama committed treason. No, not by how treason is fleshed out. He hasn't. And there's a question of like, Trump was asked like, is Obama going to be covered by presidential immunity? He's like, he probably will. And he's like, he owes me, because you know they took that issue to the Supreme Court. And there's people who insisted to me that it would not count as presidential immunity. And I'm like, okay, Obama, he didn't like the information that was going on. So he had his intelligence officials, and they use like low standards of intelligence or whatever to get a report together, you know, for Obama and stuff. And you could say that's shady, you're gonna have to like cite me like a law that was broken. But I'm telling you that presidential immunity is going to probably apply for Obama telling his intelligence officials to write up a report. Like it's just going to count. It's just going to count. And I think it probably counts more than some of the stuff that people wanted it to count for with Trump, when he was, calling up folks trying to, find votes in the 2020 election. They were kind of wilding out a bit. Like I know clerks who were, the Trump campaign and stuff, were trying to get them to say, hey, will you go out and say that this election was like fraudulent and had all these issues? And they're like, no, I will not, because it didn't, and it was fine. And and you may not believe that, but I'm talking about some really competent clerks who are good at their job and aren't left-wing activists, and they care about what they do, and they care about the country, and they certainly didn't want Joe Biden to win. But that doesn't mean they can undermine the faith and legitimacy of our elections. So if you're like, well, Obama, he undermined the legitimacy of the incoming president, I mean, if you really think that's worth someone going to jail, even the president of the United States, people can make that case for Trump too, guys. So, because going around saying it was stolen, obviously he doesn't feel like Biden was the real winner. And so that undermines our election system and legitimacy of the incoming president. So nobody's going to jail. Like they can refer to people to the DOJ and see if anyone's going to prosecute, and they can make whatever decisions that they ultimately want to make. But who do you think is going to convict them? Like I don't want to be a downer, but I just want to be honest with you guys and realistic about what's going to happen. But are these guys scumbags? Yes. And so what do we do? What do we do? Unfortunately, my mind just goes back to Trump. When we were on the campaign trail back in 2016, and I was working for State Party at the time in Michigan, and he was on the stage and he just kind of shook his head and he's like, we have the final say at the ballot box. And he might have not said that exactly or whatever, but that was just the vibe, that we're not going to get any justice, unfortunately, from the Justice Department. Like Hillary Clinton was going to get away with the email stuff, etc. But the way that we can fight back is to use the power of our vote. And we did. And she lost. And she never got over it. Something happened at the election. We know that something happened, and just, even though she's like the author of this conspiracy and she knows it's not legitimate, she went out there and she continued to push it. And you can want her to go to jail. Lying on TV isn't a crime. Going on CNN and lying isn't a crime. Posting false stuff isn't a crime. It depends on what context and where. Like, if you're being, you could perjure yourself in different situations, but not on CNN. Not on CNN. So I don't want to be a downer about that stuff, but I do want to encourage you guys that we can use our political power to make a difference. So we can talk about this stuff. We can discuss this stuff. We can argue with this information, and you can go out there and make the argument like, okay, like I did in 2024. I'm like, okay, the real threat to democracy are these people who who had all these levers of power and they used them to destroy people. Like at least with Donald Trump, and I made this case, you guys have heard me make this case. With Donald Trump, every lever of power was used against him. Like he gets checked constantly. He says something, the fact checkers, like, they'll fact check and come after him. And even though he said something that was true, like, people are always looking at what he does. He was impeached and didn't commit a crime. Like, So there was accountability for him, and ultimately they convicted him of something that was not even like a real thing, like writing a check 34 times to pay back his lawyer for paying off a porn star. Y'all think that's worth him going to prison when it should have been like a misdemeanor if he was even guilty of that misdemeanor? But you just try to ghetto rig it and tie it to something else. It doesn't even make sense because that's not how our election laws work. Like he was treated so poorly. I'm not saying he's an angel. I'm not saying he doesn't make his own problems or he doesn't make some problems that he has worse, I guess is a better way to put it. He's not an angel. I've complained about him a lot and some of his behaviors and things that he's done. But he is held accountable. He is held accountable many times. And the more people see him treated unfairly, the more like, devoted a lot of his voters were. They just like would not give anybody a chance to primary, man. They just wouldn't. Iowa wrapped up everything, bro. Well, DeSantis put like all his eggs in one basket anyway. I don't know how well he campaigns anyway. Like he's better. Obviously, he won like Florida in a landslide, but that has a lot to do with his like just good governance, But like when he ran the first time as governor, he was having some issues. He was having some problems. Like he was just, he's I guess a little awkward. But yeah, they wouldn't give Trump anybody really a chance. They were devoted to him once they saw him being treated unfairly. So there's a bunch of levers in power that are more than willing to go after Trump, even though he was the president of the United States and is the president of the United States. People will impeach him or whatever. They'll do that. But these Democrats, they gotta, we at least got to get to the point where the media will be honest about these people. There's everything can't be trying to cover them for them and cover up for them. It's too much power. It's too much power. It's crazy to think how much power they were trying to exercise like in 2024 after like the really dangerous strains or whatever COVID had already passed. And them Biden still saying this isn't about your choice, isn't about your personal freedom. And then to turn around and try to use bodily autonomy, trust the woman for like abortion or whatever. It was insane. Incredible to me. And then try to act like Trump was the one who just wanted too much power. So somebody's got to hold these people accountable, and it's not going to be the DOJ. It's got to be us. Fortunately, the Democrats are so bad. They're so bad with like young men and messaging and stuff. They really created a problem for this upcoming generation. And a lot of their moderates and like normie Democrats. It's interesting seeing walkaway stories. I've played some of them for you of people who still believe in Democrat ideologies and stuff, but they're so turned off with their different political identity politics stuff, and they're willing to play along with it at first, but now they just see it's gotten to like a dangerous point. The Democrats will double down on 80-20 issues where they're the 20. So Republicans still have like, a shot at, I think maintaining dominance for a while if they capitalize off of it properly. But we have to continue to make the case that these people are not right now responsible enough to have power. That's another reason why I want the Trump administration be less memey, so people can kind of see them more like the adults in the room, because it sure ain't the Democrats. It sure ain't the Democrats. Well, that's an interesting comment. Wow. It just occurred to me that YouTube hasn't recommended your live stream to me in months. So I searched and poof, here you are. Yep, I'm not surprised to see that. Thank you for searching. Make sure you're still subscribed and hit the notification bells. Someone said the real problem we have to deal with is a lack of communication between sides. I mean that is an issue. But I mean, there's conversations all the time from folks from different sides, um, like online, on TikTok, on but I don't know. I feel like people, some of those folks, kind of talk all the time. It's, are you willing to listen? Is one thing, but there's some people who firmly like are in their echo chamber. Like, to me, it was amazing to see like the Colbert audience, like their average age is like 68 for their viewer. And it's like, okay, those people are like set in their ways. They're older, obviously 68 or whatever. It's really hard to change an older person's mind, period. But instead of watching comedy, they go into like feel the echo chamber and hear the echo chamber and hear someone affirm the things that they already believe. I saw a tweet today. Someone was complaining about Abby on CNN. I can't think of her last name. I don't think it's maybe it's Abby Phillips. But she has a show, and Scott Jennings is on there all the time. Scott Jennings is usually like the lone Republican. They might have two on there, but Scott Jennings is usually there. Now, I think Scott Jennings is probably like, I don't know if he's carrying their network, but he certainly has a lot of viral appeal, and he's kind of the star. He probably gets paid a lot of money compared to a lot of other people that they have regularly on the show. But someone was complaining like, I just can't believe that they allow him to talk to women like this all the time, and why does they let him like interrupt them and talk to them the way that he does, and so on. And then there's other people in the comments like, yeah, this just proves what how CNN is, and that they didn't really respect women and blah 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 because they just let him talk all kinds of ways. And I found it amusing because I'm like, okay, does Scott Jennings talk to women any differently on this panel than he talks to men? Like, when you're on a panel and there's like 5-6 people, if you just wait quietly for your turn or for the host to bring you in, you're just really not going to have an opportunity to talk. You have to wedge your way in there. And if someone starts like trying to, filibuster, you have to try to get in somehow. So, everybody kind of knows the Scott show anyway. So I've seen him all kinds of people interrupt stuff all the time. I don't think he particularly treats women differently than he does men when he dismantles arguments and he talks to people and he debates. But it was just really interesting that they were just, how dare he talk to women this way? Like, well, don't you believe in equality? Like, what are you supposed to do? Like, just have a timer or tape his mouth shut when there is a lady present? But they were so mad at CNN and talking about not watching CNN because they don't like Scott being there because of their perception of him, and they're willing to just turn off, I guess, CNN. So there's too many people who are just like, I want to be affirmed in the way that I'm thinking 24/7. And that's an issue. That's really a problem. Because you can have a conversation with someone who disagrees with you, but if you're not willing to listen a little bit and you're just going to zone out or troll or rage bait or whatever, or crash out, you're just casting your pearls before swine, So that's an issue. And then sometimes you talk to people and they're just totally insincere. Like I mentioned this yesterday, but I wrote a post. It was a screenshot from a conversation that I had with somebody on TikTok about abortion. It was non-religious, and someone responded like, "Oh, well, you need to read like Numbers 5." And I've read Numbers 5 a lot. I covered Numbers 5 in my book. Of course, God is blatantly against abortion. It's on Amazon. If you haven't gotten it, I encourage you to go ahead and check it out, pick it up. Um, and so I'm like, I've read Numbers 5 many times, and I don't think you know what it means. And so I started explaining Numbers 5 because people will say it's an abortion. There's an abortion potion in the Bible, and I'm like, no, it's a if a men could put their wives away and divorce them. Um, so if someone commits adultery or whatever, he's supposed to like have a witness or whatever. But this is like a jealous husband. He's suspicious, and he could just put her away. And she's like, no, I want to prove myself. And so you go before a priest, and there's like the special kind of ritual ceremony thing. And then she says an oath, and she drinks of this bitter water. And so she's consenting to like this test going on. And then there's like a supernatural sort of sign that will occur. And so if she's dishonest when she does this vow and takes in this drink or whatever, her the saying is like her thigh will fall away and her belly will swell and her thigh will fall away, which is like rhetoric for, she will become barren. But if she's telling the truth and she's innocent, they will conceive a child. So I'm like, okay, the passage doesn't even say that she's, pregnant at the time. Actually, it says she will conceive. So you just kind of assume that she's not pregnant, and if she can pass it, they're not just poisoning women. And also the bitter water is like dusty temple water, and the dust is supposed to symbol like the holiness coming. That's why it's like coming from the temple dust, and there were some people who've read it and they believe they mentioned like some grain, and they think the grain causes the abortion, quote unquote, to happen. But she doesn't eat the grain. They like give like half of the grain to like the priest, and then they like burn the rest of it. She doesn't drink the grain. And if that's how they think the abortion occurs. So it's harmless. So God would need to cause like a supernatural thing to happen, and whatever God decides to happen, whether she's going to conceive a child or just be barren, after she decides to say this oath and take this water upon herself, like why would you go through all this trouble if you're innocent? I guess. I mean, if you're lying, if what God decides is what God decides, and God is sovereign, but that's still not you deciding to have a blanket right to have an abortion. That's very different than an adultery test with Levitical priests. So it's just really not the same. So I kept going back with this person, and I also like send them a video that explains stuff, including what scholars were saying, like a really nice, well done video. And I don't know if they watched or whatever. So we kept going back and forth, and people don't want to believe that something supernatural happened. And I'm like, we believe Jesus came back from the dead, like, or they believe that the Red Sea was parted, that God spoke through a burning bush, that God flooded the world. Like, there's all this stuff. Like, why would you not believe that this is like outside of the realm of possibility? Like, you touch the covenant and you die. Like, there's all this stuff that happens. You just think this is too far fetched. Okay. That just seems really silly. Even if you don't believe, like, why wouldn't you believe this thing? Like, why do you believe that they're giving medicine to poison women? Anyway, that was like the allegation he kept going back to, and I'm like, okay, describe what's in the bitter water. Like how would it induce an abortion or cause a hysterectomy? Like, how would the water do that? And they just kept dodging and dodging. And then they try to like throw out all these other scriptures like out of context and stuff. And I'm like, I'm not like answering 50 million other questions about the Bible. Like, what, like, answer this question or like you're gone. And like, oh, you're supposed to be empathetic, and here you are bullying me, saying like answer or else. And I'm like, I don't have to put up with your nonsense on my page. Like, either you engage or you don't engage. But I don't have to, like, if you're just gonna troll, I don't care. And so they just said, well, it's a bitter water. I'm like, what's in the bitter water? And like, you're just being obtuse, or you're just really being slow on purpose. So I ended up just like blocking them. I'm like, you don't want to answer the question because it proves you're wrong. and maybe have more patience than I ought to have had with them. Maybe I should have blocked them earlier. But when you get into stuff like that, people don't want to be honest and really engage. That's too bad. Now I see people willing to engage in conversations and change their mind and different stuff all the time. Um, and that's good. But there's some people who just aren't kind of there yet. And again, sometimes you just don't cast your pearls before swine. Um, um, Colin said Scott is a respectful person. Call about Scott Jennings. Yeah, I think Scott is really good. Are we going to someone on our side? Are we getting someone on our side in Chris Cuomo? I feel like he's especially gravelly lately. I don't trust Chris Cuomo. Like, I don't trust him. Like I think a lot of people say stuff in the political sphere, especially online doing podcasts and stuff, to get clicks and views. And, people, all the left will shift to appeal to people on the right, and then they'll rag on their own side. Like there was one lady, I can't think of her name, but she's an Asian woman, but she was all team Kamala Harris literally the day of the election. And then as soon as she lost, she flipped and she started talking about trashing the Democrats, talking about their spending and all kinds of different stuff. And she'll be on Piers Morgan's show. She's on Fox News all the time, and she's getting all this traction because she was trashing the Democrats, but she was just trashing them 2 seconds ago. Now, I'm not saying that people can't change their minds, but you literally switched up like the day after the election. I don't even know if it was day. Maybe it was like as soon as she knew that they had lost, and she's like, "Oh, the Democrats, they're trash." So I don't. I think maybe some things that Chris Cuomo maybe that he's saying now that he knew to be the case before, but he just had worked for CNN, so there are certain things that they say. So maybe there's some honesty here now. But I don't know. I kind of just want to see some humility and some repentance. Like it's fine if you're going to change your views, but you need to like really break down why that happened. Like people talking about, well, Kamala Harris doesn't believe all these things that she supported 4 years ago when she was running for president. It's like, okay, well, she needs to actually say those words, and she needs to explain why her views were stupid and why she's changed her mind. And I don't understand why, if she's freshly changing her mind, why we should trust her as opposed to someone who just believes the opposite of those terrible policies. But you can have a chance, but you need to explain the change. JD Vance, when he was asked about like, well, why did you say all these terrible things about Trump, and now you're cool with him, now you want to be his vice president, whether it's sincere or not, he has a good explanation. Because I'm like, oh gosh, he's got all this baggage about all this terrible stuff that he said about Trump. But man, he had a good explanation. He did. Anyway, before I let you guys go, I do want to mention Kamala Harris. She said that she wasn't going to run for governor of California, and there's probably a lot of people relieved to hear that. But some people who still want to be her fans because she happened to be the last person who ran for president. People didn't like her before, but now she ran for president and was another female who ran for president, so they still gotta pretend like she's hot stuff. They're like, oh, is she gonna run for president? And she would just not do well in the primary. So I think she's the best kind of route for her to go to amass more power would have been if she went back to California and ran for governor. I don't know if she could have won a primary there, but that she has a better chance of doing that and then becoming the president after she has run a state. And if she does a good job, I wouldn't think that she would do a good job, but that would just be a better path for her. Maybe she sees it as a downgrade because she was just the vice president. Now she, maybe, but is what it is, bro. You're not gonna win a presidential primary. The Democrats have to be like really insane to go that route. A lot of people think that AOC is gonna end up being their nominee because just how radical or whatever their side is going, and they don't really want to stand up to their loud radical base. So maybe AOC will be the nominee in 2028. But she said something. I'm not gonna play the clip because I don't want to get dinged by copyright or whatever. But she went on Colbert Show and was asked about it, and so she said that, you know, she had to fight her family to basically be a prosecutor and stuff, and to work within the system or whatever. And she said that she doesn't want to work within the system right now because she thinks the system is broken. And I thought that was a curious sort of thing to say, because I think what's broken about the system is definitely people like you. I don't think you helped to unbreak the system. I definitely think you were a problem. Um, but to me, it sounds like, you know, she's a little burnt out. She's a little tired. She's a little sad, which I understand. You know, I ran in 2018 for a seat, and it was a congressional seat where I definitely wasn't going to win. It was an 80-20 district, but it's still like wasn't great to lose. You know, doesn't feel great. So on that scale, that's tough. That's tough. But if I could throw out a hypothesis, to me, it kind of seems like she's going to try to do some other kind of political work or activism, you know, maybe have her name on some kind of board that does something for, I don't know, voting rights or climate stuff or gun advocacy or something, you know, that's maybe she's going to try to collect a big check while they maybe do stuff or don't do stuff. And maybe that'll kind of be the end of Kamala Harris, because I just her best upward momentum would have been if she could eke out a win in California being the governor. She ain't gonna be the president, and I'm glad for it. I'm really glad to hear that. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on the website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the site, because it does cost a stream. Run the site, all the good stuff you guys can support. I very much do appreciate it and appreciate you guys. You guys can check out different merchants available at the store, different mugs and t-shirts and so on. I do have different books that you guys can check out. Like, of course, God is Blatant Against Abortion. That's one of my nonfiction books. My other nonfiction book is Slay Your Fear, How to Overcome a Spirit of Fear. But most of my books are like historical fiction fantasy. I've got some children's chapter books and all kinds of stuff. So if you need something to do this weekend, I got some books for you. There's a link in the description if you're watching on Facebook and YouTube, where you guys can pick up that stuff and check it out. And leave me a nice review, guys. Anyway, God bless you guys, and I will see you on Monday.